Welcome to Recap Revolution. Today, we're diving into the intense world of Colombiana, a revenge-driven action thriller starring Zoe Saldana as a deadly assassin on a mission to avenge her family. Buckle up, because this recap is about to be explosive. Please note, there might be spoilers ahead. Now, let's jump in. In 1992, in Bogota, Colombia, a skilled enforcer named Fabio Restrepo informs his employer, a ruthless crime lord named Don Luis Sandoval, that he intends to leave the criminal world behind. Fabio hands over a set of digital files he claims contain crucial details about Don Luis' operations, hoping it will buy his freedom. However, as soon as Fabio leaves, Don Luis secretly orders his enforcer Marco to kill him. Fabio quickly returns to his car, aware that he only has about an hour to escape. He and his men race back to their territory. Upon reaching home, Fabio finds his wife Alicia and daughter Catalea, and tells them that they have 10 minutes to pack their belongings. Fabio entrusts his 9-year-old daughter, Catalea, with a memory card containing the sensitive data. He tells her it is her passport to safety and gives her the address of her uncle, Emilio, a resourceful figure living in Chicago. As a final gift, he hands her a necklace with an orchid pendant, a family heirloom meant to protect her. Fabio and his wife, Alicia, bid their daughter farewell before bravely facing Marco and his men. They realized that the exit is being blocked by Marco and his men. Fabio and Alicia grab their weapons. Marco and his men open fire on Fabio's men at the gate and killed all of them. Meanwhile, Catalea sits in silence, witnessing the tragic events. She sees her mother being gunned down first and then followed by her father also being gunned down. Fabio manages to signal Catalea to put the memory card in her mouth and swallow it. With both parents dead, Marco introduces himself to Catalea as a close friend of Fabio, even consider himself as part of the family and tries to explain why he had to kill her parents in front of her. Marco tries to convince Catalea into handing over the memory card. Marco reaches out his hand and asks Catalea what she desires most. She stabs his hand with a knife and coldly responds, "To kill Don Luis." Marco yells in pain as she turns and runs, jumping from a window and landing on the streets below. Marco and his men chased her through the streets. They almost capture her, but she manages to hide inside an empty water tank. When the coast is clear, she emerges and finds herself cornered again. Thinking quickly, she dives into the city's sewer system. She navigates through the tunnels, emerging near the U.S. Embassy, her father's final instructions echoing in her mind. She approaches an official, revealing she has information to trade. When asked for proof, she vomits up the memory card, leaving the official in disbelief. This secures her asylum in the United States. Given money and a foster placement, Catalea seizes the chance to escape and makes her way to Chicago. She finds Emilio's address, handing a man the note from her father. When Emilio sees her, she breaks down, finding comfort in his embrace. The next morning, Catalea joins Emilio's family for breakfast. Emilio sees her drawing of Zena and asks if she wants to be an artist, but she says she wants to be a killer and asks for his help. Emilio agrees but insists she must first get an education. He bribes the school official in order for her to be admitted, but Catalea is not happy with the idea to go to school. To prove his point, he fires at a passing car, teaching her that intelligence is key to survival. 15 years later, Catalea gets herself arrested by crashing into a police car while pretending to be drunk. At the station, officers process her and tell her to sober up. That night, U.S. Marshals arrive with a high-profile criminal. Once left alone, Catalea changes into a tight suit, picks her cell lock, and sets up a timed power outage. Using the distraction, she sneaks through the vents, knocks out a guard, took his gun and enters the criminal's cell. She forces him awake and shoots him. The gunfire alerts the station, and officers rush in. As the chaos continues, she slips back into her cell, pretending to be asleep. The next day, FBI agent James Ross arrives, identifying a drawing on the victim as the signature of a hit woman they've been tracking for years. He orders a lockdown, but Catalea has already been released and contacts Emilio to confirm the success of the mission. The next morning, Catalea meets with Emilio. He tells her that her mother misses her and wants to see her. He then gives her the details of her next target, a man who stole money from dangerous people and now has to be dealt with. Emilio also shows her a newspaper featuring her signature drawings and warns that her quest for revenge could put their family in danger. He urges her to stop, determined to see her mission through. Meanwhile, Ross identifies the drawing as a Catalea orchid, a flower native to Colombia. When he tries to dig deeper through the CIA's database, he hits restricted access. Catalea moves to another safe house, where she has trained 2 large dogs to follow her commands. That night, she watches her target in his heavily guarded home as he requests even more security. When a van full of guards arrives, she sneaks inside unnoticed. Using a glass-covered pool with 2 sharks underneath, she makes her way into the house. She then appears before her target as he wakes up, his eyes widening at the orchid drawing on his chest. Panicked, he realizes all his guards are dead and stumbles toward the pool, where an orchid is placed in the center. From the shadows, Catalea steps forward and shoots him in both legs, making him bleed heavily. She fires another shot, sending him tumbling into the water, where the sharks finish the job. Meanwhile, CIA agent Richard meets with Don Luis, warning that the recent murders threaten their deal. Richard orders Marco to eliminate Catalea. Meanwhile, Catalea meets her boyfriend, Danny, but avoids sharing personal details with him. The next morning, Danny secretly takes a photo of her while she sleeps, which he later shows it to a friend, who sends it to another friend in law enforcement for a background check, unknowingly alerting Agent Ross. Catalea decides to stop her revenge mission and reunites with Emilio and Mama at church. Mama is overjoyed to see her. Meanwhile, Ross gets Catalea's ID and issues a warrant for her arrest. Catalea plans to meet Danny but realizes she's been exposed. Checking her cameras, she sees officers outside. She escapes, retrieves a sniper rifle, and sets explosives in her apartment. As Ross' team storms in, she blows the charges and disappears. Evading authorities, she changes her appearance and escapes through the railway. Rushing to Emilio's place, she finds Mama dead and Emilio tortured and killed. Devastated, she breaks down in tears. Later, she surprises Ross at his home, forcing him onto a pressure-sensitive bomb and demanding he help her. She wants the CIA to back off Don Luis. To ensure his cooperation, she threatens his family and instructs him not to move until his microwave beeps. The next day, Ross asks Richard for help, but Richard refuses. Catalea calls Ross while aiming a sniper rifle at Richard, demanding Don Luis's location. Confident behind bulletproof glass, Richard dismisses the threat until she fires a warning shot. Realizing that he's not safe, he gives up the address. Catalea gears up for the mission, loading her weapons and attack dogs into an armored van. She forces an architect to hand over blueprints to Don Luis' compound. Meanwhile, Marco warns his men about her skills, but before they can act, a rocket destroys the entrance, throwing them into chaos. Despite the explosion, Marco, Don Luis, and some guards survive and try to escape. Catalea intercepts them, ramming her truck into their convoy and taking out several men. Marco leads Don Luis to a safe room before hunting Catalea. However, she outsmarts him, launching an attack from below. Marco throws a grenade, causing a massive explosion. His men search for her, but she has already moved to the balcony, shooting down the remaining guards. Marco and a guard try using a decoy, but Catalea eliminates him. In a brutal fight, Marco briefly overpowers her, putting her in a chokehold. She counters, forcing them both down. She then removes the slide from his gun and stabs him in the neck, killing him. Don Luis tries to escape in a van, believing he's safe. Mocking Catalea, he vows revenge. But he soon realizes she has placed her attack dogs inside. At her command, they lunge at him, killing him. Later, Catalea calls Danny, relieved to hear his voice. He tells her he loves her, but she hangs up before the authorities can trace her. Leaving everything behind, she boards a bus and disappears into the distance. If you enjoyed this recap, smash that like button, subscribe to Recap Revolution, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update, and also drop your comments below. See you in the next one.